welcome back to this. I watched that. And this. So yeah, I watched Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton classic. In my opinion, one of his coolest movies. I'm not the world's biggest Tim Burton fan. I like his stuff, but this is definitely one of my favorites. It's just the whole vibe to it was on point. So as usual, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, don't watch this. Otherwise, I'm gonna just tell you pretty much what happened and then give you my opinion. So it starts off in New York City in I think it's the late 1700s. Got Constable Ichabod Crane, who's this investigator, and he's trying to fight for using scientific methods instead of just accusing and then persecuting as such. He's like, no, there's a method, and we can find out specifically through science who did what crime, etc. And there's this whole ordeal where he stands up in court and he's defending it and whatnot. And they show a clip of the jail, and it's just it's brutal. They just throw a guy in a pit because one of the officers is like, he was stealing. And they're like, oh, okay, good enough. So, yeah, that's fun. Anyway, so he is in this court, and they send him on a snipe hunt, I guess. They say, okay, you're going to go to Sleepy Hollow. There have been a string of 3 murders, all of them without their heads. He's like, okay. And they're like, and you're going to use your scientific method to prove whatever happened to them. Figure out who it is, who's the killer, find it. And he's like, all right, I'm down. Finally, an opportunity, albeit kind of an out in the sticks type opportunity, to prove that my methods are valuable. So he goes to Sleepy Hollow. And it's this little, and now it's not, but it's this little rural farming town. I was actually there this year too, hence the shirt. It's a nice little town. But in this movie though, it's Tim Burton-y. So, cloudy, overcast, very gray, dead trees, Halloween-y vibes. It's like a scarecrow with a pumpkin head with a jack-o'-lantern on it. You know the deal with Tim Burton. So, but all very well done. I really like the atmosphere. So, Ichabod Crane arrives, and he's introduced to, he's looking for a Van Tassel, who's the head of the town now, because the guy before, I can't remember his name, but at the very beginning they show a guy getting killed, and he has a will and testament and whatever, and he gets his head cut off and his son's head cut off, and when they're riding on a coach to somewhere. Anyway, whatever, that's neither here nor there. So now this Van Tass guy is the head of the town, and as Ichabod's trying to find his accommodations, he goes to the main building, I guess, and there's a little party happening, and there's this girl who's the daughter of Van Tass. Her name's Katrina, and she's doing a blindfolded smoochy game. Good times. There's a whole romance built up with them. Anyway, it starts with a smooch on the cheek while she's blindfolded and whatever. Anyway, he goes and finds the Van Tass and meets with him in the back, and he sends his wife out or whatever, and they talk about the murders, and Ichabod is like, okay, so I hear you got some murders going, and I'm here to find the suspect. And they're looking at each other what exactly did they tell you about it? They're like, oh, nothing much, other than there were 3 murders, and all of their heads were found severed from their bodies. And they're like, yeah, but okay, cool, but we didn't find the heads. The heads are gone. And he's like, what? All right. So anyway, while he's there, another murder happens, and they find the body, and Ichabod is alerted, and he goes running to the scene, and he's doing his scientific investigation. It's the same thing. Someone's head's gone, cut off and taken. He's looking at the tracks. He's like, wow, this horse must have been coming really fast. So they ran him down, turned around, and they came back for the head, because he's just looking at the tracks and everything, and he does his little chemistry stuff to find out, I guess, that there's a reaction to sometimes, I don't know. That part doesn't make sense. It's he says a thrusting stab made a chemical reaction with his power. I don't know, that's silly. But and he notices that the head is cauterized, and they're like, yeah, it's because he's from hell, the sword from hell. Chops, cauterizes, no blood, whatever. He's like, okay, this is kind of bizarre. So later that night, he has this flashback dream or whatever of his mom, who later on in the movie it's revealed that she's like into like witchcraft, but like Wiccan witchcraft, not like Wicked Witch of the West witchcraft. So like nature stuff, Wiccan, I guess. But he keeps having these recurring dreams of her. And there's one where she's like spinning in like a clearing in the forest and like floating, and then there's another one where she has this little spinning bird thing that like on one side's a bird and one side's a cage, and then when you spin it quickly it looks like the bird is in the cage or something. So there's that, and he keeps having these recurring dreams. And the last dream being his mom being persecuted for witchcraft, and like he finds her see, I'm jumping all over the place again. So at one point, Katrina sees that he has like scars on his hand, like little stabby marks or whatever, and he's like, I have no idea how that. Anyway, it's revealed in the dream that he saw his mom in the Iron Maiden dead, and the doors open, and like she fell out half and was hanging, and like blood poured everywhere. Good times, very, very, very pleasant visuals. And as he was backing up, he put his hand on a torture device which had a bunch of spikes, which left his hands stigmatified, but like many, many punctures. Anyway, whatever. So he's still convinced that it's a man, and he's like, okay, I gotta figure out who this is. Like, who would, could this be? Let's narrow it down. Then there's another murder. This one, he actually sees, and he's freaking right the hell out. Like, they told him the story of the Horseman, and he just, like, laughed it off. Like, okay, that's, like, folklore. I'm not buying that. It's a flesh and blood man. We're gonna find him, and we're gonna put him to justice. I'm gonna bring him back to New York City and try him and prison him, whatever. But no, it's a horseman. And he sees it. And he sees it kill someone and take their head and ride off. And he's like, okay. So next scene, he's like in bed shivering, like just like traumatized. And they go up to see him, and he's just like barely can even function. And you're like, okay, well, this was pointless. I guess he's going back to New York. Anyway, he pulls himself together, and he's like, okay, let's go find the body. Let's go find the grave. I believe this now. It's a ghost that's not at rest. We gotta figure shit out, so I gotta go find his grave. Shoot, I feel like I'm missing a big chunk of the movie. Well, whatever. Anyway. So they go find the grave, and it's this big twisted... Okay, yeah, so he's on the trail, and the only one to join him is this boy who's the orphan of one of the recent victims, and he's like, I'm gonna help you avenge my father, so I'm swearing my allegiance to you. And he's like, I can't take care of you. And the kid's like, I got no one else. And he's like, fine, come along. We're not watching Peppa Pig, though. But yeah, so the kid's the only one to join him on this trek, and they find this cave, and they go into the cave and approach it. And it turns out there's like an old witch in there who's like just old and creepy, but I don't think necessarily evil, but she's like, yeah, I'm gonna help you find the thing, but you have to like sit down. And she chains herself up, and he's like, why are you chaining yourself up? She's like, feels like she takes like a bat and cuts its head off and squeezes its blood and a bunch of herbs, making like a little potion thingy, and then she summons some sort of spirit, which I don't know what it is exactly, but there's like a really goofy CGI thing where the eyeballs come out and wiggle around in a weird tongue. Like, I guess it's supposed to be a jump scare, but it's silly. Anyway, she like launches herself at him and basically like is all threatening, but tells him essentially where to find the Horseman's grave. So awesome. Follow this old, Native American trail, and there's a big tree called the Tree of Death or something. He can't miss it. And sure enough, he does, and there is, and he can't. So he runs into Katrina, who had followed him and also was wanting to help because no one else other than the child would. So whatever, they had a little reunion. And he approaches the tree, and there's some blood dripping from it. He's like, okay, this is good times. So he's chopping at the tree. He's like, okay, something's in here. Maybe it's, the grave or something. I don't know. We gotta figure this out. So he chops it, and there's like blood spraying everywhere, all up on him and everything in his face, and pulling bark away. And it reveals that all the heads of the victims that the Horseman had killed are stored in that tree. So essentially, his head's gone. He's taking all these other people's heads to like until he gets his back or whatever. Yeah. So that happens, then all of a sudden they see the grave, like they see the horseman's sword with like vines on it, and they go up to the grave or whatever, and then the tree opens while they're doing that, and the horseman flies out and his horse, and they take off. And they're like, oh boy, this ain't good. So they go and they go to follow him or whatever, and I think this is where he ends up like fighting the midwife's husband or something, and Ichabod is like helping him, so they're both fighting the horseman, and it's 2 against 1, and they're kind of like upper handing, but he can't die, he's dead, right? So good luck. Anyway, they end up slowing him down enough to run through the covered bridge again, the famous Horseman Bridge, and you hear a thump, and they look behind him, there's nothing, and anyway, it turns out he like jumped on the top and jumps down behind them and ends up taking the dude bro's head off, not Ichabod, the other guy, and stabs Ichabod in the shoulder, takes off with this guy's head. So he does that, and then he ends up killing, like, I guess the midwife and her kid or something. I'm kind of confused as to what characters are what or whatever, but anyway, he ends up killing a bunch of people. Kills the kid, though. It's not shown, but it's implied, so, you know, good times. Yeah, so anyway, he's in bed, and it turns out that this, that Katrina had, like, she gave him, like, a book of, like, spells and protections and stuff, and he's like, what the fuck am I gonna use this for? This shit's bullshit. And she's like, just take it. He's like, alright. Pockets it anyway, whatever. Yeah, so she, like, did some white magic to, like, help him heal faster or something, otherwise it would have been a fatal wound, and he's thankful and stuff. Then they find, like a seal, like, drawn in chalk under his bed, so right away he's like, oh shit, is she behind it? I don't know. And the blame goes to the father, Van Tassel, and they're like, hey, it's gotta be him, and Katrina ends up, like, burning the evidence, saying, like, you can't accuse my father, I have to get rid of this, I'm sorry, like, he's not the guy or whatever, or I have to protect him, and you don't know him like I do, and whatever. And he's like, the evidence points to him, but whatever, I still know what I know. Oh man, like 3 seconds ago I stopped watching this before this video, and I'm already forgetting stuff. That's really pathetic. I've been on, like, no sleep recently, so I'm gonna blame that. Anyway, long story short, they end up going into church. The horseman comes again. He's, like, looking to kill people. So they meet with the notary, and the notary kind of, like, half-assed confesses everything. The boy finds his dad's bag, and he's like, how does he have this? So he's in on it. It's like a big conspiracy. So the magistrate, the notary, the priest, and they're all in on it together. And anyway, the notary kind of gives that away. He's like the cowering old man, whatever. He ends up hanging himself later, and like when they say he's dead, Ichabod right away thinks, oh, is it the horseman? No, he was hanged. He's like, what? He hanged himself? Okay, that's whatever. Man, I'm all over the place here. I really apologize for the shoddy workmanship of these things, but I'm determined to do one take in raw ridiculousness of ADHD, forgetfulness, and all that crap. So this is what the channel is, people. All like 2 people who subscribe, this is what you're getting. Likes well wasted. Anyway, where the hell was I? Get a notary. Oh yeah, they go into a church. The horseman's like coming, and he's gonna like kill, I guess, the Van Tassel or whatever. He does. He can't come on the ground because it's like hallowed ground or holy ground or whatever. So he's like, he tries with his axe, and the axe melts, and he's like, all right, I gotta think of something else. Anyway, the Van Tassel is standing at the what does the priest stand at? The podium or whatever, I don't know what you call it. Anyway, he's standing at that with a big window behind him, and like Scorpion, get over here! This big piece of the fence goes flying right through his chest, and yoinks him right through the window, takes off with this guy. So Van Tassel's dead. Katrina is found on the ground, like she had made like another circle thing, so like everyone's really sus, or well, Ichabod's really sus about her anyway. She falls, and he assumes that she's dead because I guess medical technology back then was piss poor, so slow breathing, next to no breathing, you couldn't really tell. I don't know. Anyway, he thinks she's done for, and he takes off, and she wakes up and like looks out the window, and he's like, you don't really know, is she like good, bad, whatever. Anyway, he comes to a realization about something. I can't remember what, but he gets them to turn the thing around. He realizes, okay, it's not Katrina. Turns around and goes to find her. The stepmother ends up like confessing that it's her. So that's what's happened. The stepmother wants the fucking will, and Van Tassel and Katrina and all these other people that the Horseman had killed had been in the way, and she had taken the skull and summoned the Horseman and basically had him do her bidding and take these people out. Because she's holding a skull captive, and so he's like, I want to rest, and I can't kill the skull, so yeah, I'll do whatever you want, lady. It's just whatever. So that's this big reveal that she's the one. She has Katrina, and she's like, you're the last one that that I have to take care of, because basically everything goes to you now that your dad's dead, but if you die, then it goes to me. So she summons the Horseman again to kill Katrina, and he comes, and that's a whole big ordeal, and Ichabod's there, and they're trying to like intervene and whatnot, and they go into this big windmill, and Katrina's climbing up the ladder with Ichabod behind her, and Horseman's slashing at it and whatnot, and he's like, I got a cool idea. Oh yeah, the boy's there too. And they climb up to the top, and he throws like a lantern down and fire, and they're like, is he dead? And he's like, that's the problem, he's already dead. Of course, sure enough, Horseman walks out of the burning building. Totally fine. And he gets up to them, and he's about to kill Katrina when Ichabod notices the stepmother, who was watching the whole time like a sadistic biatch, because that's how she do. She has a little, like a Crown Royal bag, or whatever. It's like a velvet bag, Crown Royal. It looks like one. It's like a black velvet bag, and Ichabod puts two and two together. He's like, the skull's in there. So he like knocks her off the horse or whatever, or he takes the skull or something, and there's like a fight on the ground. A little boy ends up clubbing her in the head and knocking her out, so Ichabod can get the skull. Horseman sees it, drops Cat. He's not interested in her anymore at all. He just wants his skull. Like, fuck, if I can skip all this killing and just go back to bed, like, I'm right there with you, buddy. Like, when I got a busy day of cutting people's heads off, I'm just counting down the minutes till I can sleep again. So I get it, man. I get it. Oh, fun fact. The Horseman is played by Christopher Walken, who has no lines in the movie except for which is brilliant. He is, anything that Christopher Walken is in is usually pretty solid. It's another movie with him that I want to review, The Prophecy. I love that movie. The first one. The other ones are okay. The first one is really good. I think so anyway. Some people don't think so. But that's nothing to do with Sleepy Hollow. What am I getting sidetracked for? Because I always do. So, whatever, Horseman puts his head on, and like there's some goofy CGI of him going blah with his eyes popping out as like the skin's forming again, and he has his head again, and he grabs the still unconscious stepmom and is about to take off with her, his head now restored. He's gonna rest, he's gonna take her, and the stepmom wakes up and she's like, what the hell? And looks up and sees like the newly restored Christopher Walken headless Horseman face going at her, and she's like, what the fuck? And then they make out for some reason, because like, why not? But like, bloody, because his teeth are all filed, so I guess he like bit her tongue off or something. I don't know, it doesn't really show. But there's blood on his face when he pulls back up, and her mouth is all bleeding, so I'm assuming he bit her tongue off or something. I don't know. I guess he's taking her for his bride or something, or I have no idea. But anyway, he takes her and they jump back in the tree, and peace has been restored to the kingdom. Sun comes out, Sleepy Hollow is like nice. It's nice fall colors, and with sky, bright sun for the first time since the beginning of the movie, and everyone's all chill and whatnot, and yeah. Again, peace has been restored to the kingdom. I don't know who's in charge of the town now, because they don't actually touch on that. But obviously, Kat and Ichabod have hooked up, because the end scene is him taking her into New York, and she's got her arm around him, and he's showing her around, and basically she's staying with him now. So I guess they're a couple. Yeah, and that was Sleepy Hollow, or at least like fragments of it, disjointed, disorganized, recalled by someone who has the attention span of a goldfish. That being said, I did enjoy this movie. I always have. It's one of the ones that I'm reviewing that I actually own a physical copy of, because it's solid. Some of the things are a bit goofy, but again, like, and another thing I'm going to say is, and don't crucify me or anything, but like, Johnny Depp in his most recent part of his career, I guess, seems to always play the same character. And I like Johnny Depp, but like it's you know, it's the same character all the time, like the Mad Hatter, Jack Sparrow. They all have that goofy like ooh or whatever. But his character here is solid. Like you can actually show his real acting chops. There's another one called The Ninth Gate that I want to watch too at some point. That has Johnny Depp, and he's really good in that too. But I think Johnny Depp is at his best where he's trying to play like a somewhat serious character, and he does for the most part in this movie, which, again, for me, checks off all the boxes. So, yeah, Christopher Walken, Johnny Depp, you know, playing a serious role. Christina Ricci, which it's Christina Ricci, you can't go wrong with that. She's Katrina, for anyone who doesn't know. There are a ton of actors that were playing like the conspiracy group or whatever. I can't remember any of their names, but like you'll see them and say, oh, that guy, he's in like these 7 movies. Oh, that guy, he's in these 7 movies. So good actor selection. Yeah, so what am I gonna rate this bad boy? Well, 8.6. No reason, just seems like a fitting number. 8.6. 8.63. 8.632. There we go. We're going to add an extra decimal. So this is an 8.632 out of 10. Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a good time. There's not a lot of gore, but there's enough to like be kind of cool. Like there's blood and heads cutting off and stuff, so that's fun. Visuals are all pretty stunning. It's Tim Burton, so I mean, you know what you're getting for the most part, but it's like a more realistic Tim Burton. So it's really, really pretty. If you like gloomy, overcast dead trees and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't. What are we at? Holy jeez, over 20 again. I'm really trying to make these videos shorter, but my ADHD, lack of brain power. I don't know if I actually have ADHD, I'm just saying that, but I get sidetracked easily and forget things I saw 4 seconds ago, and then videos go along as I'm trying to recount things and recalling the same thing I already said like 7 times, so I apologize for that, but nonetheless, that's the movie. Go watch it. Good times. Happy Halloween, because this will be released on Halloween. Bye.